Hey guys, it's Tuesday, 12:02 a.m. on March 10th, 2020. And I tried to make this update all day on March 9th, and I just couldn't do it. The information kept coming at me. The emotions were very difficult. We are in the middle of a spiritual battle, and I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to communicate these things to you. I have some good news and I have some bad news, mostly bad news, and I'm going to be sharing that with you in terms of observations that I have from the media and some stuff that has come to me from my relatives overseas. But first, let me give you the good news. The good news is that I do not have to fly down to Arizona on Wednesday. Rather, I will be driving. Now, that's what I wanted to do, and I was very glad when Amazon dropped off this contraption for me today because I have had great adventures driving to Arizona. It will be fun to bring you guys with me. However, when I watched the market crash this morning, it occurred to me that it is a very long distance between Michigan and Arizona. And though I often joke that I never know where the Lord is going to put me, that could take on a whole other meaning now that I will be driving 2,000 miles in what could be quarantining times and market crashes and credit freezes and who knows. But either way, I will bring you guys with me and keep you posted. Now, let's go on to the information that I have from my relatives. San Marino has 36 cases of coronavirus, and you may remember from my last video, I told you that 3 of those people are my immediate relatives. This is the country that my family is from in Italy, and I love to show you guys things on Google Earth. So what I'm going to do is just take a second and show you guys the street that I spent my summers on when I would go over to Italy with my nonna. Now, I'm going to turn this around and show you the amazing view that we have from the bedroom window in that house, because my bedroom window faced the front of the house. So let me show you this very amazing and beautiful view here. That's the view from my bedroom window. And this is a picture of that view from the very window that I was just telling you about. And right next door to me lived my uncle. There's my zio Vittorio, and there's my nonna. And they're talking in the backyard of that house. This is the uncle that was diagnosed with coronavirus. This is my aunt, Zia Alba, my uncle and my nonna, my uncle and my nonna. And sadly, you guys, we got news today that zio Vittorio died. Now, this picture was taken in 2008. He's a very old man, and he's had Alzheimer's for the last 10 years. The absolute perfect target for the coronavirus, which, by the way, is just another medical term for influenza. Now, I want to point you guys in this direction. I've had quite a bit of feedback and controversy on my channel. This one was one of the nicer ones where this person, Joy, asked, I don't understand how they can diagnose one with coronavirus when the symptoms are the same as the common flu. Why aren't they diagnosed with the flu? Well, I said this is an excellent question, and it is exactly what I was asking my son in January when he would call and tell me how serious this thing was in China. I asked him, how the heck can they distinguish the cough and respiratory distress of influenza from the novel virus, and why would any medical facility need to distinguish between the flu and coronavirus 19 if they have the same fatality rate and symptoms? I concluded that I should probably do a video on what I mean by this getting serious, because I am not convinced there is any additional risk to people from sickness from a health perspective. The risk is from how our government is handling this from a freedom perspective. Now, I was accused on the last video of being a page shill, as I am often accused of, but this one took a different turn because this guy stayed in dialogue with me, and so did his foul-mouthed friends. And I want to share with you guys some of the problems that we're having with getting people to comprehend what's actually happening here. He says here, okay, Grace, why don't you start by telling me why, just out of the blue, you all of a sudden decided to do a video on a hoax virus pandemic that's literally never been proven to exist. And here's the conjunction of disjointed thinking, and has the same exact symptoms as the flu during flu season. You see, guys, here's the problem. What people don't understand is that you can be misled. You can have the media be lying to you about something that is actually true. Now I'm going to point Mr. Galter here and anybody who hasn't seen this video to Never Lose Truth's video here on the 8th. This was an excellent video. Now I'm going to cue it to the very beginning of the part that starts talking about the news, because what she goes over here in the summaries of information, she goes through information from different sources where it reveals the things that doctors are saying. Doctors have always called the flu coronavirus. That's the name of the flu. Now they've started calling it a novel coronavirus, and the word novel means new. So there's something new about this, but the strain of the flu changes every year, you guys. We know these things. I will point you to this video to please watch how even the people in the medical community, they're concerned about the death rate in Italy. That is something very, very serious, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But the bottom line, you guys, is that this is the flu. The problem isn't so much the illness, although if there is a weird, bioweapon strain of it, I don't know about that. I don't think we have enough information to actually conclude that. In fact, that's one of the things I want to share with you guys. The information, I want to look here and point out where we get our data from. We can draw our data from mainland China, but as I pointed out in my last video, I don't believe anything that comes from a communist country. These numbers could be anything. It's nonsense. This is like getting your science from the National Enquirer. It's a communist country, you guys. They have absolutely no reason to give us the truth, which brings us to the next series of numbers. Now, over the last few days, South Korea and Italy have been neck and neck in competing for, I'm being sarcastic here, competing for who had the most people sick with this thing. But I want you to notice, South Korea is only reporting 53 deaths when they've got 7,000 people in their population is infected with this, whereas Italy has 9,100 people sick, and they have had 463 deaths. Now, if you do the math on this really quick, which I want to show you how to do this in case you guys don't know, you take the number of deaths, which is 463, and you divide by the number of people sick with the virus, and then you'll get the death rate. The death rate here is 5%. That's higher than what you see with the flu generally. So what we end up with is the only country that we can actually do any metrics by, any calculable metrics, unfortunately, is Italy. And even Italy calls over to the U.S. doctors when they have problems. So I'm not even sure that we can believe the numbers we're getting out of Italy. So our choices are essentially mainland China, Italy, and South Korea, and maybe Iran. Now, out of those countries, you guys, Italy is about the only country that we can work with the numbers, because they're probably the only country that has a reliable standard of keeping statistics in their medical community. I mean, South Korea and Iran aren't exactly icons of medicine, and I don't believe anything that comes from mainland China. So we're still dealing with a very small population, which isn't good for extrapolation. However, that is not how the mainstream media is taking it, and this, I want to point out, is being very troublesome. Let's listen to this clip from MSNBC, and I want to highlight a very serious problem I see coming on the horizon.
133 new deaths in just one day, 366 now in all, and more than 1,400 new infections.
133 deaths in one day in Italy.
That is NBC's Bill Neely last night in Italy. The global fight against the coronavirus reached unprecedented levels over the weekend, with Italy's government placing more than 16 million people, a quarter of their entire population, under lockdown, as more than 109,000 cases of the virus have been confirmed across at least 104 countries. Yet here in the U.S., the response has been dramatically slower. But from all accounts, it doesn't have to be.
Okay, that is the key. Here they are, and this is how the mainstream media is handling this. They're turning this into a political thing, and we're not surprised to see that there's a left hand and a right hand, and everybody's trying to pretend that it's not the same monster, two different arms. The idea that it doesn't have to be, They're going to offer a solution now for how the Americans should respond so we don't have these outrageous number of dead people, because all these people are going to die. Now let's listen to how the mainstream narrative is unfolding to give us advice. And I want you to remember, of all the countries on that list, which is the country that they're going to say we should follow the policy of. Not just the statistics. They're assuming that the statistics are accurate, but we need to follow the policy of this country. Let's listen very, very carefully.
In a recent interview with the New York Times, Dr. Bruce Alawarda, a leader of the WHO team that recently visited China, saw firsthand how China rapidly suppressed the coronavirus outbreak that had engulfed Wuhan.
Okay, so here we go. Here's the problem. The problem is the solution they're offering. The solution that they're offering is that we follow China's procedures for suppressing the flu, for suppressing the coronavirus. So in other words, what they're going to proceed to tell you here is the reduction of cases they had because of the extreme measures they took. And what they're not going to bother to tell you is that this is the face of communism. This is what they do. We don't know if any of this stuff is accurate. The communists are liars. That is their very nature. They hate God so much that they don't even allow him in their country. Okay, and Jesus tells us point blank that light has come into the world, and these men hate light. They love darkness. Why? Because they're evil. And everybody who does evil hates the light and doesn't come to it, so you can't tell. The only people who come to the light are the ones who are doing truth, and the closest ones we have to that would be the Italians, and they've only got a track record of like 9,000 people. But what mainstream media wants us to buy is the communist solution, so let's keep listening.
And was threatening the rest of the country. This past weekend, Chinese officials reported only 99 new cases on Saturday, down from around 2,000 per day.
Okay, so somehow the Chinese, in their dramatic quarantining efforts, if any of this can possibly be imagined to be true, they have dropped the spread rate of the coronavirus from 2,000 to 99. You guys, that is a miracle. And the only one who does miracles like that is God, and God is not allowed in China. So this is absolutely not even possible now. This is not the only place where we are getting the idea that communism is going to be the solution here. And be careful, you guys, because as absurd as it sounds, this is what's coming. Let's take a listen to what our buddy George Stephanopoulos said today when he was talking to some guy at the White House.
But when George asked a member of the president's own task force, Dr. Ben Carson, to explain the federal government's responsibility, he appeared to add to the confusion.
I think it's time for people to really indulge themselves in learning about how viruses are spread.
Okay, I'm going to pause that and repeat what he said. He said, I think it's really important for people to indulge themselves with learning how viruses are spread. In other words, educate yourself.
And to take advantage of that knowledge in determining what their daily activities are going to be.
Okay, now that sounds like self-determination. That's a pretty good American value, isn't it? Get educated and determine what your actions are going to be based on the information that you've gathered for yourself. Wow, that's novel. Let's hear how George Stephanopoulos reacted to the idea that you should think for yourself.
I'm confused by the message you're sending right now, Dr. Carson. I have to say, you seem to be putting all the responsibility back on individuals, saying that they should be thinking for themselves. I'm trying to ask you what, in the view of the government experts right now, what broader measures need to be taken?
None. The American people need to think for themselves, and it actually baffles the mind of George Stephanopoulos. You guys, there is a passage in the scripture where it says that, it's in John 1:5. It says that light has come into the world and the darkness could not understand it. That is the problem with people whose minds are blinded. They cannot understand the light of the truth. And the truth is that if you arm yourself with basic knowledge about how viruses spread, you can, as everybody has for the last 5,000 years, be able to keep yourself relatively healthy by staying away from other sick people and contaminating yourself with licking your hands after you've touched the railings as you walk up the stairs at the mall. I mean, this is not brain surgery. And yet these people can't quite understand it. Now, that's not the only place, obviously. If the people like George Stephanopoulos need the government to think for them, we are in the biggest trouble this country has ever been in. And I'm going to give you yet another example of that.
All right, Stephanie Ramos joins us now live. And Stephanie, we heard about the recent deaths and outbreaks inside of nursing homes in Washington State and tonight here in New York.
Okay, so I just want to anchor this in thinking about this. He's talking about how there have been a recent series of deaths in nursing homes in Washington State. That's way over on the west coast of the country, in case you guys don't know where Washington State is. And a handful of old people died because the flu went through the old folks' home. And guess what? Old folks don't usually survive influenza when it hits them. They get pneumonia and they die. And that's exactly what happened to my Zio Vittorio. Okay? I think it was like 8 people in Washington State. I could be wrong on that. But now let's hear how the governor in New York, 2,000 miles away, has decided to respond to this.
Governor taking drastic action to protect people in nursing homes?
That's exactly right, Tom. New York State now has restricted access to nursing homes.
What did she just say? Let's back this up, guys.
That's exactly right, Tom. New York State now has restricted access to nursing homes.
Whoa. New York State, the governor of New York, has restricted access to nursing homes?
Governor Cuomo adding outside visitors will not be allowed inside nursing homes in the New Rochelle area. That's where the lawyer who's been being treated here lives. The governor.
Okay, so in a town called New Rochelle, they are not going to let people go into nursing homes to visit the elderly because there is some lawyer who was exposed to coronavirus in the city. You guys, I'm telling you, the entire country has lost its collective mind. With everybody going to the market these days to go buy toilet paper, would you guys please head over to the stationery aisle where you will get those big, huge poster boards that your kids use to make their science projects at school? Get some sticks and get some Sharpie markers. Go down to Home Depot and get a pitchfork, guys. It is time to hit the streets. This country has lost its mind. The way that we are, and I'm telling you guys, if you tolerate this, if you tolerate your governor allowing you to blockade who's allowed to go visit their mom at a nursing home, you guys the battle is over. There is no hope. Now, one of the things I want to share with you guys is my big concern about what is happening in this country right now. And I want you guys to look at the geography of Italy. This area here in Italy is just like all of northern Italy. What is the one thing you guys see? What is all this light brown area and all of these rows here? You guys, this is a farming country. Everywhere you go in this country, with the exception of the very few big cities, and there aren't that many, the rest of the country looks like this. So, for example, my cousin Roberto is not sick, and he and his wife are being quarantined in separate places, by the way, and they're not allowed to leave the house. And so are their children in separate places, by the way. So I asked my dad, who last talked to Roberto, I said, how are they getting food? These guys have been on lockdown for 2 weeks. And my dad said, oh, well, his wife's brother is bringing them food. And I'm like, from where? Oh, they're probably just bringing it from home and dropping it off at the door. Now, that's possible in a country where every single other block ends up being a farm with chickens and animals and storage shelters with all sorts of food and mason jars and stuff like that, because that's how these people live. But what's going to happen when the governor of New York decides that he really is going to shut down the subway? Well, I'll tell you, if you guys go to this video here that Never Lose Truth did, and I really do recommend that you guys go watch this, where she gives all this information about how they've shut down that festival, what is it, South by Southwest, and just all the financial impact. And that was decided by a mayor. Since when does a mayor have the authority to stop economic activity in a particular city, especially where this economic activity is what keeps the people alive? See, guys, the problem is that this is turning into an overreach of government authority, and the actual solutions that they're pushing in the news, you guys, those solutions are literally Communism. This doesn't get any worse than this, you guys. Especially for the Christians out there. You guys think this through. Jesus hasn't been into China since it became a communist country. I mean, there might be a few Christians there, but it is illegal. They've been rewriting the Bible, and we've been wondering why all this terrible stuff is happening. I just can't believe that the book of Revelation is like opening up right in front of us. I'm laughing, but only in shock and I mean, okay, here's the thing. It says in the Bible that if our gospel is hid to those who are lost, in whom the God of this world has blinded the minds of those who believe not. And they don't believe this is the truth because they don't receive a love of the truth, and in their suppressing of the truth, in their unrighteousness, you guys, they become corrupt. And this corruption has gotten so widespread. Now, I want to share a couple of other observations for you. This really is a spiritual battle. We are up against the devil, and there's no way around it. We're going to look at Ephesians 6 here. Everybody knows this. But Ephesians 6 says that we don't wrestle with flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, and spiritual wickedness in high places. So what these guys are advertising here, what these guys are getting us to try to warm up to, is the efficiency of some very spiritual wickedness. The rulers who are ruling by communism are wicked, and the news is coming from only two sources. It comes from Associated Press, and it comes from Reuters, and it is delivered as propaganda. It is a machinery to try and get what the Bible says is going to be the one world order that comes at the end, which is going to be really ugly. And we see now that this could very well be a possible thing that happens. Now, the thing I want to point out is that because this is a spiritual battle, and there is a spiritual agenda unfolding here, we are going to see the signature of wickedness in a lot of different places. And the problem is, a very important problem that happens in the truth community is that they become black and white in their thinking. And for example, I want to give you guys this example here with this particular video that was done by a channel named PK. PK Truth is, you guys may remember if you did any investigations into some false flags in the past, this guy has been very entertaining in bringing forward some of the very bizarre inconsistencies that we see in the mainstream media, and I'd say that he's a very good researcher. The problem is that some of the conclusions he draws are inaccurate, and in this particular instance, I love you, PK, but buddy, you were wrong on this. The fact that the number 400 shows up in just dozens, literally dozens of mainstream media articles does not mean that the coronavirus is fake. In other words, PK uploaded this 33-minute video where he goes through all sorts of mainstream media articles, from The Mirror to The Guardian to, I think, The Wall Street Journal, just you name it. Every one of the mainstream media news sources seems to have, over the last 3 months, combined the number 400 with coronavirus. And it is uncanny. It is bizarre. It looks like there is some conspiracy out there to let everybody who's in the know that this is some conspiracy of wickedness. And in fact, if you're familiar with the scriptures that I just read to you in Ephesians 6, it's true. There is a spiritual battle happening here. And the sources of this news are on the side of the enemy. Now, what's interesting to me about this is that PK does not mention that all of our mainstream media news is sourced from two places, the left and right arm that we can affectionately call Reuters, and the Associated Press. That is the left hand and the right hand of the media empire that is demonic information that is being disseminated to us. And they're definitely going to sign their work in these little weird numerological things. I'm going to show you, I've even come across a few of them. For example, I've come across the coronavirus webpage. I noticed early on March 5th, I noticed that all these pages were updated on 333. So they all have 333s in them. Does that mean the information isn't accurate? No. It just means that this is a spiritual battle, and these are the signatures of our enemy. Now, I want to point out, it's not because I have gone through and actually updated this myself. These are the updating information from Johns Hopkins. I took the screen capture at 3:47 p.m. But this was last updated here on March 5th at 3:33:03. Now I started noticing this on many of them. I'm just showing you a handful of them here. This is March 7th at 3:43:03. I took the screen capture at 5:52 p.m. And let's look at this one. This is from March 5th, 7:33:03. And this is from March 8th, 3:33:02. So there is definitely a signature here, a signature that lends itself to what Ephesians 6 says, that we are fighting a spiritual battle. And since these guys, they serve wickedness without even realizing they're doing it. Now, do I think there's a boardroom somewhere where they all got together to say, let's put the number 400 everywhere we sign the word coronavirus? Frankly, you guys, I don't know. I don't know how the principalities of darkness work. I know that they're pretty creepy dudes. And there's finally now one last thing I want to share with you guys. And that would be this. This is the list of medications that the FDA has shortages on. So you guys, when you go to your doctors, would you please just try and get as many extras as you can, because this is a very disturbing list. In other words, I have come across some drugs here that I know are going to be really hard for people to detox from, including buspirone, Adderall's on this list. There's a lot of them. Pain medication, lidocaine for intubating people, and fentanyl. There's going to be some, and obviously erythromycin we need. There's just a ton of medications here. So you guys, get your extra medications, because I have a feeling that what is coming down the pike here is going to impact our supply chains. And as I was pointing out with what's going on here, when you start shutting down regions, if you don't have a neighbor within like a mile or two that has chickens and eggs and food for you, you could be in very, very serious trouble. I don't know what's going to happen. The world is a very strange place, and it might be that everything rebounds by the end of the week and we will all forget that this even happened. But I doubt it. So please, guys, do your due diligence. Please go watch at least this video here, the middle part onward of what Carol uploaded. The information is very, very important, and I will keep you guys posted. Have a good night.